Okay, so what have we done up to this point? So we based on a relational model, we created a database in Microsoft Access, tables and the relationships, with some information in the tables. We've also seen how to create a form, and the form allows us to input information into the table. So the third topic we're going to see now is the topic that has to do with queries. Now, again, a question that can be in the next exam. By the way, I haven't finished grading your exams. I hope to have them this week, at least uploaded into Blackboard. I haven't, yeah, I think in general, what I've seen up to this point, you guys, similar to last exam, there may be a few things to kind of clean up, but in general, I think you guys are catching on to stuff. Remember, you guys are the cool kids for exams. So always ask you, how do you feel about the exams? And you're like, so yeah, you guys are cool for exams. I like that. So I hope to have those by this week. But a question if you kind of in the final exam or the third exam, depending on if we're going to do a third exam or not. So what is a query? What had we said the term query meant? Question. Query, the question is the same thing. So a query is a question. And so in database terminology, a query is going to be, I'm going to ask the database to do something. And there's many types of queries in the database. And we're going to go through them and how to use them. There is a query or a type of query that's called a select query. So a select query is going to ask the database, I want you to give me or extract information that has this criteria. I have information about the students. So a select query would be, I want all of the students who are 18 years or older. So that would be an example of a select query. Okay? It's a query that's going to extract information based on a criteria. Then there's going to be another type of query that's going to be an update query. So for example, an update query could be, I want to, or I need to modify the email address of a specific student. So the query is going to look for that student and a certain field of the information, which in this case would be the email address or a phone number or whatever. I'm going to modify the current value and change it to a number. That would be an update query. And the last type of query is a delete query or a removal query, where it's basically I'm going to look for a record or records that have certain criteria. I want to eliminate them from the database. By the way, you guys, be very careful when you're working with queries. And I'm going to give some indications here that please don't forget them. Once you do something to the data, there's no control Z. There's no undo. So if I run a query that eliminates a record, that's going to eliminate the record. I can't do an undo. If I do a modification, I can't reverse the modification. So we have to be very careful when we're working with queries, what we're going to be doing. So sometimes it's recommended to have kind of like a backup. What I would recommend is to have kind of like a backup of your lab exercise 2 version of your application project. And then when you're going to be doing the queries, copy that file, do some tests. And once you're sure about what you're going to be doing, then do it in the other one. So keep a backup. Okay? Because once you modify the information, you're not going to be able to go back. So we are here in Access. This is the version 2 of the SOSA Corp. All of the versions are uploaded in Blackboard. This is the version 2 where we have the tables and we have the form. And so now we're going to add some queries. Now, how do we add queries? We're going to go over here. I'm going to move this to the bottom. we're going to go here to create. And there in create, we've got the different things we can do. And here we've got the queries. Remember that there are wizards, Microsoft Access, any sort of Microsoft tool is going to have wizards that are going to try to do things for us. We can use the wizards to create a query if we want. I don't like using the wizards unless we have to, but they're there. What I'm going to go now is to the second button that says query design. Okay, so I'm going to click here in query design. Notice that what happens is a few things here to take note. First off, it's creating this blank space, which is the query that I'm going to design. Number one. Number two, remember that in Microsoft Access, when I create anything, a table, a form, a query, anything, by default, it doesn't have a name, or it has a default name rather, and it's not saved. Okay. So one of the first things I would recommend once you notice that the query is called query one by default. One of the things that I would recommend when you create a query is do a Control S just to save it. And I'm going to call this query employee select salary range query. It's a long name, but another thing that I'd like you guys to notice is that on top are the different types of queries. Okay. By default, the query that is selected when you create a new query is called a select query, which is this option here. So by default, it's going to be a select query unless you do otherwise. So what am I going to do? I'm going to create a query that query is going to extract the employees from the database that have a certain range of salary. Okay. So what am I going to do first? First, I'm going to select the table where I want to extract the information. So I'm going to bring employee over here. And then I'm going to select the fields that I want to be added. I'm going to add, for these examples, I'm going to add all of them. I just drag them over here and all appear here in the bottom. And so employee social security number, name, address, salary, etc. And here on the bottom, it says criteria. That's where I'm going to write the criteria for the selection of the records. Now, by default, if I don't put any operators there, it means that I'm selecting records that certain fields are equal to that. So, for example, I'm going to go over here to salary. I want to select employees that have a salary that is less than, I'm going to say 70,000. Notice that the operators I'm using, less than, greater than, I can use the equal, but the equal by default, if I don't put anything here, by default, it's equal to. And I can combine them as we'll see as well. So right now, this select query is going to select employees from the employee table whose salary is less than 70,000. So I'm going to do a save. Before I run the query, I'm going to go to my employee table. This employee table, in the examples I'm giving you, has some pre-filled information. So notice that the employee salary here, there are ranges of salaries there. Okay, I am Thor and myself are the ones that earn less here in this example. If I run this query, I should get 3 records, right? Jorge Sosa Lopez, Carlos Olor, and Mario Ramos. Those are the 3 employees that have salaries less than 70,000. Okay. So that's the original. By the way, there's a select query is not going to modify your original table. The original table, the information is still there. The only thing it's doing is extracting information so it can be shown. And as we're going to see later on, I can use a query to create a report. Okay, so this is the employee table. I'm going to leave that. I don't like having tabs open, so I'm going to close it. And so I'm going to go here to query design and notice that there's this button here that says run. So I'm going to run it. And if I run it, oh, there's 4 because store makes $5 or pesos or whatever. So we actually have 5 records. These are the employees whose salary is less than 70,000, and that's what the query is giving. Okay, that's what this extraction that I just did, as we're going to see on Wednesday. I can create a report that the report is based on a query, so I can actually tell the report the information that you're going to show is based on query name, employee select salary range per. And so that information that I have there, I can organize it in a report. I can put it where it's more visually attractive. Is this part clear? I'm gonna add something additional to this one. Well, something very important as well. Remember that there are different views. There's the design view, there's the other views. In this case, there's the query view. Something very important here. Right now, I'm looking at the query view. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the data sheet view, which is the information. I can go back here and look at the design view. There's another view here that I just want to show you guys just so you know it, which is called the SQL view. SQL is what's called this structured query language. It's a standard for databases. It's a language that's a standard for databases to be able to do queries. So if I wanted to code this, meaning I didn't want to do it graphically like I did right now, but I wanted to generate a code. This is the code that's generated. Structured query language, or SQL, is relatively simple. So basically, how does SQL work? First off, the command is select from the employee table, all of the fields that are indicated there, where employee and salary is less than 70,000. The structure of SQL is very simple, but when I create the query, Microsoft Access is creating this code for me. I don't have to create it. And I'm going to go back here to the design. I'm going to close this query. Be very careful with one thing when you're working with queries, okay? Be very careful. So let's say that here in Microsoft Access, I want to open a table. What do? I double click the information. So for example, if I want to open the dependent table, I just double click on it and I get the table, right? If I want to look at a form, I just double click on the form and the form opens. And by default, it's either opening in the spreadsheet view, or in the case of the form, it's opening on the form view. Be very careful with a query. If I double click a query, it means it's running the query. It's not necessarily showing me the query so I can edit it. It's going to run the query. So a recommendation is that when you're working with queries, don't double click on the query to open it. Do a right button and open it on the design view. Why? What if this were not a select query and were a delete query? The moment I click it, it's going to execute the delete. It does have a prompt telling me, do you want to delete a record? But you have to be careful with that. So open it with the design view. Yes, Ben.
I'm doing or there is no control C, right? No.
That's
That was really tedious. Like, I did something. I was like, I know it.
yeah, that's the thing about these sort of integrated development systems. Since you've got a lot of moving pieces, there's it's a good observation that there's really no control C, and even more when you're working with queries. So if you again, it's a delete query, you double click and you click OK, that's gonna delete the record, you can't go back. So yeah, it's a thing where we have to be very careful with doing things. I recommend you guys, when you're working on the lab exercises or doing anything on your project, do a backup first. So back up the previous, that's why I'm giving you the lab exercises and sequences. So first back it up, leave it in a folder, do whatever you need to do, make the mistakes you have to make, and then return to the original. And so the recommendation here is to open it on the design view. I'm going to do another query. I'm going to do it as well on the employee table. Just to give another example. Well, actually, I'm going to do it on the same. I'm going to do it here. I'm going to call this one employee select salary manager. And so I'm going to select the fields here. Yes. Oh, it's a control. So I'm sorry, shift. So you select the first record and then shift and arrows down. First off, I want to select the employees who are managers. So remember that the manager field is a yes, no, or true, false rather. And so I want to select all of the employees that are managers. So I'm going to go to the employee field and I'm going to say it is true. I don't have to put an equal or anything like that, because if I just put the criteria, it's going to interpret that it's equal to that. So if I run it, I'm just going to get the employees that are managers. And then I want to also find the employees that are managers that have a salary larger than 1 million. So I've got these. And I'm going to add another thing here. I'm going to add that the gender is female. Notice that I'm using the apostrophes. No, these things. Why? Because it's text. Remember that it's text. Okay. So if I run it here, then I'm just going to get the ones that comply with that criteria, which is salary larger than 1 million, that they are managers, and that they are female. So I get this information extracted here. Okay. And remember that in each step to do a save. Okay. Questions up to this point? We good? Okay. Now let's do query. That's not going to be a select query. It's going to be an update query. The difference between a select query is that a select query is just going to extract information. An update query is going to look for certain records and it's going to modify them. So I am going to, I'm going to call this employee update salary increase query. So we'll grab the employee table. Drag these down here. So notice that if it's a select or an update query, the table here on the bottom looks a little bit different. So here are all the fields. Which one do I want to update? I want to update the salary. But the criteria is that any salary that is less than 10,000, I'm going to update that salary to 15,000. Okay. Before I execute it, let's go over here to the employee table. How many salaries do I have that are less than 10,000? Actually, I think just Thor here. So that one would be updated. I think I can say less than or equal. That would update mine as well, I think. So I'll save this and let's run it. So in an update query, different than a select query, it is going to prompt you. You're about to update 2 rows. Once you click yes, you can use the undo command to reverse these changes. Are you sure you want to update these records? I'm going to click yes. And if I go over here to the employee table, then myself and Thor, our salaries have been upgraded. I can do that the other way. For example, I'm going to create. I'm going to call this employee update salary manager. Sorry. So I'm going to grab the employee table. I'm going to grab all of these, bring them down here. And now I want, it's going to be an update query. I want to update the queries of manager. First off, just the managers. So I want managers to be true. The salary of any manager that is less than 1 million, 10 million. Any manager whose salary is less than, this is 10 million, right? 1, 2, 3. Any manager that salary is less than 10 million, I want to bring it up to 10 million. Before I do that, I'm going to look at the employee table, which meet that criteria. Manuel Terrazas, Carmina, Iskra. Those are the managers that have less than 1 million, than 10 million. I'm going to save it. Let's run it. So 5 rows are going to be updated. I'll click yes. Go back over here to the employee table, and they have been updated. Okay, all the managers that have these characteristics have been updated. Okay. I've updated them to, I updated them to 1 million. So I think I reduced the salary. So a few of them. Now, there we go. I had updated it to 1 million. So that's the update and we can combine criteria. We could use dates. We can use a bunch of things, and that's the way we do the updates. Okay. Okay, so we've done select queries, we've done update queries, and we know we can do those to either extract information or
modify information in the database. So there's another type of query we can also do, which is basically a delete query. You have to be very careful with the delete query because as we were mentioning before, there is no undo. So I'm going to call this employee delete delete employee query. So I'm going to go over, well, I'm going to open the employee form that I already have here, this really ugly form. I'm going to add a new employee. I'm going to call this employee 50,000. No, it's the social security number. We haven't set I'm going to call him Dr. Stephen Strange. Okay. Gender, it's going to be male. He was born. Say he was born in 1966. Address, what is it? 222 Bleecker Street, right?
Yes. Wait, the sign is confirmed or?
It is this. It's 222 Bleecker or something like that, right? I think it's 222 or Bleecker Street or Bleak Street or something like that. Salary. Let's say he earns five.
No, it's 77.8, like the Bleecker Street.
Oh, 1778. I don't know where I got the 222.
That's Sherlock Holmes.
It is. Is it? I think so. I don't know where I got the 222. Department 2 supervisor. Let's say that I'm his supervisor. Let's say that he is a manager.
Sherlock Holmes is 221B Baker Street.
Baker, yeah.
Yes, that's where the museum is.
Baker Street. So we're going to add Dr. Esteban Raro as an employee. We go over here to employee. Dr. Esteban Raro has been added here. Employee number 50,000. So what we're going to do here is I want to delete that record. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go over here to employee. Mouse is working incorrectly. So I want to delete the employee with employee number 50,000. So again, we have to be very careful because once we execute a delete query, there's no going back. And we also have to be very careful when we're doing delete and update queries if we have them related to other tables. So for example, let's say that I say I'm going to delete department number 10. It's going to be a problem if I do that. And actually, that's probably going to send an error message if I try to do that, because there's many employees related to department 10. So if I eliminate department 10, the employees are going to be affected. So that's why the relational model is there. It's trying to protect these anomalies that we created. So we have to be very careful when we're executing these. So this is going to be the delete query. Just as a reference, if we go over here to the SQL, again, it's very simple. Delete from the employee table. I want to show all of these fields where employee is equal to 50,000. I'm going to execute it. It says I'm about to delete one row from the specified table. Once I click yes, the undo command cannot reverse changes. So I'm going to click yes. And if I click yes, then Mr. Esteban Raro has been eliminated from the employee table. In Spanish?
In Spain.
Yeah, I've never understood. Yeah, in Spain, they do these sorts of literal translations. I've never understood why most of the superheroes in Spanish, at least, they call them by their names. Sometimes they do that, the trotacielos, they do those bad translations. But I-
In Mexico, the thing is la mole, pero.
The mole, that's a different one, yeah. But it still makes sense with the character. I've never understood why. And I've never actually researched it. I should, because I'm a big fan, but I've never understood why. So in English, it's Bruce Wayne, but in Spanish, it's Bruno Diaz. In English, it's Dick Grayson, and in Spanish, it's Ricardo Tapia. It's like names that have nothing to do with the original one. And did they translate it differently? Yeah, but Grayson and Tapia, that doesn't have anything to do. I don't know why that happens. It does, so. Bruno Diaz, Ricardo Tapia. And so the record has been deleted, we can't get it back. So these are examples of the three types of queries. Now, in lab exercise number 3, and I'm just gonna open it here so we can just go through it quickly. Just give me the exam and your study guide included in the exam, please. So for lab exercise 3, again, you're going to have this video that I just uploaded. There's the video from last year, and there's the YouTube tutorial. Yes. And there's the YouTube tutorial. So what you're going to do for lab exercise 3 is based on lab exercise 2, the 2 files you already have. And that's when no, the 2 is for this week. No, yeah, you haven't turned it in. This one is to turn in, so they're out of phase. So this one you have to turn in, I believe, next week or the other week, so they're out of phase. So based on what you did on the previous one, you're always going to be building on the previous one. Remember, there's 2 from the Hilltop Animal Hospital. A select query that gives us customers who live in a certain state, and another one that gives us pets of a certain type. These are 2 separate ones. They're not the same one. Also from the Hilltop Animal Hospital, do a query that updates information in the pet table. The update can be whichever update you want to create. And do a delete query from the customers table. What you're going to delete or what record you're going to delete, criteria you can define. And for your application project database, I want you to do an extract or select query, an updating query, and a delete query for whatever table you select or for whatever information you want. You define that. Okay. So that would basically be a lab exercise 3.
Sure, question.
Yes, go ahead, please.
So for every update that we do for this, for example, if we delete a row, will the next exercise also have the deleted row, or should we make a copy of the first one?
However you wish to do it. Actually, the information or the data that's in your databases, that is, well, I'm going to say it this way, that's fictitious information that you can add there. I'm not going to be, what I'm going to be checking is the function of the database. So I'm really not going to be checking if what you put in the records. Okay, so you can do it either way. My recommendation is that you've done lab exercise 1, which is basically just create the database. Then lab exercise 2, you're going to do forms. Name your second one. Name all of them with a different version. So notice that the ones I'm uploading, it's SOSA Corp version 1 has to do with the first one. Then there's another file that's version 2, another file that's version 3, and another file that's version 4. So that's the way I recommend you do the sequences for all of these exercises. That way you're keeping the previous one. Okay. So what I don't recommend you do is, for example, for I don't know, your application project, you created the database, and you're gonna be doing the 4 lab exercises on the same file. Because you might make a mistake and you're not gonna be able to do it. So finish the lab exercise, turn that in, save it with another name, which is version 2, do that one, save it, turn it in, copy it, and do it that way, okay? And the records you delete or you add, or you remove, that doesn't really matter. Okay, good, so, okay, so